The next two speakers will present something that I'm very fond of. They will present a situation that's similar in Slovenia. We have also these mixed regions where the two languages are taught, and in spite of good models, in spite of working hard, the English is taking over. That means the minority languages are coming less and less interesting, less and less also learned, and we have this same problem in Slovenia. So I would like really to see what you were remodeling, what can we just compare and also copy from you. Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the presentation, let me express our feelings of happiness and honor to get this opportunity to, I wanted to say, stand in front of you, but we are seated right now, so sitting in front of you and sharing our ideas and thoughts. We decided to do the presentation, two of us, to share the joy and the thrill. And I'm going to start with more general ideas and thoughts and more general experiences with our students of the Faculty of Central European Studies of Constantine the Philosopher University in Nitra, Slovakia. And the second part is for Ildiko, who is the IT specialist at our faculty. So I'm going to be more general and she's going to be more practical and more maybe concrete or exact. Okay, so what we can share here or what we can say, I don't know, maybe the title, what we have, like using ICT in language training for future teachers in linguistically mixed areas. So the previous title was like foreign language training, but then we realized that we are going to speak more about our first and second languages. Of course, there is a foreign language, but there is no, or there won't be a focus or exclusive focus on foreign language. So then we decided to reshape or rearrange this title a little bit. So but there will be, of course, first, second language and the foreign language in language training. Okay, so when I arrived today and I saw you, so many nice faces and sympathetic people participating in and thus showing their interest in a symposium or the series of symposia which which were dedicated to multilingualism, I just thought that it proves something for me, or it says something for me, and the message is that probably this is quite obvious for all of us, and it is clear for us that one of the priority requirements for an individual to succeed in today's society is speak languages, speak more languages, to be bilingual or maybe more. This is probably nothing new under the sun for most of you, but it became really important in Slovakia when the country joined the European Union just a couple of years ago, so we are quite freshmen in this playfield. So ideally, a European citizen should speak 3 languages. Firstly, that could be a language that would function as a lingua franca in Europe, or I would say all over the world. In my case, this is English. Secondly, that should be the official language of their country. Official language of their country, which doesn't have to be their mother tongue. This is my case when I come from Slovakia, but I belong to the national minority community, so I'm Hungarian, but I of course have to speak Slovak. And of course, last but not least, and this is very important, people should speak the language of their closer region, which is many times, not necessarily, but many times this is their mother tongue. In my case, this is Hungarian. Yeah, and therefore, you know, this whole event is dedicated to multilingualism. So we had, or we were in contact with Miguel and the organizers who did a tremendous job for us. So we had this conversation to support and to promote multilingualism. So that's why we prepared our presentation in 3 languages. So Ildiko was nagging me to share this with you. So now that's why you can see that we have in 3 languages. We didn't know really which languages to choose, and then we decided to choose our first and second languages, plus of course English. So if any of you can enjoy the Slovak or Hungarian, just go ahead. Okay. Oh yeah, I already said this. So this would be ideal, maybe in Europe. Of course, for us, for our schools, this is a new challenge. So our schools are facing a new challenge because they have to make possible multilingual education or education in many languages or more languages which can develop and support multilingualism. But we also believe that schools can contribute to promote multilingualism if they apply appropriate teaching methods, language teaching methods, and they use more languages in education. Again? Okay. Why am I talking about this? This more languages, multilingualism is quite actual in our country, since according to the latest census, which was held in 2011, so according to this statistics, there were about 20% of people who stated different of approximately of 5.4 million people, 20% who stated different ethnicity from Slovaks. So this clearly indicates multi-ethnic character of the country. So, so with 460,000 people, 8.5% representing the Hungarian minority. So the Hungarian minority is officially the largest and the most significant minority in the country. Of course, there are other minorities. The Slovak government actually recognizes 12 minorities or ethnic groups, Czechs, Ruthenians, Ukrainians, the Roma population, which is officially like 2% of the population, Czechs and Ruthenians 0.6 and Ukrainians 0.1. So officially the Hungarians are the largest and the most significant. The legal regulation of the country allows minorities to use their own language in oral and written form wherever they reach 20% of the total population in the municipality. So, of course, this is much more complex than this, or much more complex than it sounds, but actually there is a legal background to use these languages. So we really should support using more languages also at schools. Our students, we have experience with the students who attend our faculty. These students come from linguistically mixed areas. Most of our students are Slovak and Hungarian students. Slovak students usually are graduates from secondary schools, Slovak secondary schools, and Hungarian students are mostly graduates of secondary school where Hungarian is the language of instruction. What are our experiences when we take into consideration their language proficiency? It was very nice that I could listen to the previous presentation where this Finnish, Swedish example was presented, because it was it was really interesting for me, because we do not have two national languages, or I would say two official languages. There's only one official language, but our students use both languages. I think we are far from the Finnish model, which says that even the kind of monolingual Finnish students have to do something or have the B1 proficiency level in Swedish. We do not have anything like that in Slovakia, so maybe this is a good example to follow. But what we have at our faculty, these students come with a language proficiency on a various level. So Hungarian students should speak Slovak because this is the official language, and they pass final examinations at the end of the secondary school studies, and so on and so forth. But many times we find that their language proficiency is quite low. They use Slovak with mistakes, and they are afraid of using it and stuff like that. On the other hand, Slovak students do not necessarily speak Hungarian. Those students who come from linguistically mixed areas where our university is actually located, they understand and they can use, but their style, again, the proficiency level is quite low and their style is colloquial at best. So what we usually do, or what is our basic aim at the beginning, is to help them with this, is to help them to overcome these language obstacles, to avoid further problems in their further studies and future profession. How do we do this? How do we do this? I loved this avatar stuff, so maybe I would love to show this to our dean and some other people to start something like that, because it was a good example. I know that this is not a good word now. The keynote speaker just killed this gag. But maybe we can learn something from them, because they said that the students were not so much afraid of using a language which is not their mother tongue, or they know, they hear themselves doing these mistakes or making these mistakes. So this is a lovely idea. Maybe we should consult on this later with the Finnish colleagues. So what we can offer, thanks God, our lecturers are bilingual, or they use more languages, and many times this it depends on the lecturer, but our lecturers are really open people towards students, and they have an agreement that the students can choose the language of the lecture, and this really suits, this approach of our lecturers really suits both types of students, the Hungarian with weak Slovak and Slovak with colloquial Hungarian, because Slovak students can learn the standard Hungarian, or they can learn the terminology and the technical words. And on the other hand, Hungarian students are put in, I would say, like a constant Slovak environment, and they are, so to say, forced to use the language even with mistakes, and then there is a peer correction, or this is not such a frightening environment, but still they are in a so-called constant environment. Okay, so let's say we have students of preschool and elementary pedagogy, so preschool and elementary education, and these students get Hungarian language and literature and Slovak language and literature lessons. This is necessary for their future profession, for their full qualification, and of course these languages are going to be organic parts of their professional life. On the other hand, of course, this can enhance or better their language proficiency. This is quite a direct way of teaching them or doing the language training, but of course there are indirect ways. For example, this is the case of my colleague Ildiko, who speaks Slovak, Hungarian, speaks Russian perfectly, and she speaks some English as well. She's an IT professional, so she teaches for these preschool and elementary pedagogy students, further future teachers, basis of informatics. Of course, in this case, English comes into the picture, because English is, we all know, the mother tongue of rock and roll, and of course informatics. So she cannot avoid, and she doesn't want to avoid, why should we avoid, terminology and all the necessary and basic terminology, abbreviations, and all the stuff which comes with informatics. So she has this in English, and of course Slovak and Hungarian as a language for explanation, isn't it? And of course, it applies for other scientific subjects like biology or the biology of children and stuff like that. Of course, learning English or learning a foreign language wouldn't be sufficient or wouldn't be enough through like the basis of informatics. So our students have to get a more like direct and traditional way of language training, like English language training, and this is like English lessons with me on a weekly basis, 90 or 180 minutes. It depends on the on the study field, and yes. So it depends on the study field. As the range of our study programs, and of course these contact lessons, which I can offer mostly to my students, so these numbers are limited, and this was also mentioned in the previous presentation, that there's no time to do it again, and so we need to incorporate new forms. We need to incorporate new methods to the traditional educational processes. And this is utilizing the ICT devices. Probably you know better than I do that modern information and communication technologies or devices of ICT can be used in many forms and in many ways in traditional teaching. The computer being or playing the role of the teacher, playing the role of the students, doing statistics, being the source of information, and so on and so forth. But of course, we don't have to forget that although these traditional ways of teaching are becoming insufficient, we have to find, or we should find, or we believe we should find something, some healthy blend of these two ways or these two forms or methods, and when we utilize ICT devices in a proper way, the teaching and learning can be more efficient, fun, and of course it can motivate our students to better performance, as it was the case before. Okay, one more thing from my part, and then I give the word and the platform to Ildiko. We talked about, during the coffee break, we talked about interactive whiteboards. So using devices mindlessly or using the devices appropriately and so on. Lately in Slovakia, the interactive whiteboards have become really popular. All the primary schools have these interactive whiteboards and really widely used. Unfortunately, according to our information, many of our colleagues use this device like as a simple board, just projecting some pictures, asking students to look at. So this is not really interactive. And that's why we have to train our students. I talked about preschool and elementary pedagogy students. We have to teach them through these devices, and of course we have to teach them how to use these devices in their future profession appropriately and well, to avoid these failures and mistakes. Okay. And the last thing, the last slide from my part, this is Ildiko's and one of our students' work. They devised a very, very simple task or an assignment for the junior section of primary schools. The first two pictures are illustrating Hungarian practice and the the two at the bottom illustrating Slovak practice, both for small kiddos at primary schools. So first, as you can see, it's very, very simple. We have there a football pitch, actually, with the word football pitch in Hungarian. So the students were encouraged to use the letters and rearrange the letters and make new words and recreate this word, and they could use these letters more times. So practicing and enriching Hungarian vocabulary. The other one is probably for even a tender age, or more tender age. This is in Slovak. We have there two columns and the pictures there. Two columns are like domesticated animals and wild animals, and the pictures of animals, and they have to drag and drop. So this is a very simple stuff to put the animals to the correct group, and then they were asked to make some sentences. For example, a pig is a domesticated animal. Prasiatko je domáce zviera in Slovak, but it's all the same. And or they could say like the cat is black, or any kind of sentence which is meaningful. So practicing Slovak. So this was the last slide from me. Of course, as we again heard before, these ICT devices or this development is very very quick and very fast, and we have to keep up somehow and use more and more maybe better and better devices and methods, and one of them is learning. And now this is Ildiko.
Thanks. What could I say about learning? In this time, we cannot imagine our everyday life without mobile communication devices. Therefore, is it absolutely natural that mobile devices are used in teaching and learning? They support a new dimension in the educational process. Mobile learning, or M-learning, makes studying possible anytime, anywhere, about anything, and without time restrictions through mobile phones. It can be used by anybody who wants to learn. Students can use this learning method individually or in group work. It is also a great experience to learn new things while using mobile. The greatest advantage of M-learning is that the study materials are presented in short and understandable pieces and simple form. The use of M-learning is possible on contact lesson and for distance learning. In both cases, the students receive the learning materials through mobile devices. The content of education materials is not necessary to differentiate for M-learning, but it must be prepared differently than other digital learning materials. The prepared modules must create a homogeneous and compact corpus. Can M-learning be used in language learning? Yes, of course. Mobile phones can support language learning. For example, while we are waiting for the bus, the train, or plane, when we have short free time, we can learn new words, revise the task, or read some text, and not only play mobile games. To learn a language through mobile devices, we can get exercises, insert messages every day. M-learning can be useful in language teaching and learning for many reasons. Why? On one hand, because the mobile devices are small and handy, the task must be short, interesting, and comprehensible. The language learning will be easier and more interesting if we use pictures, audio, or video sequences in the learning materials, which are necessary for foreign language learning. When learning a foreign language, practicing the pronunciation is necessary too. The voice function in mobile device might be well utilized for this aim. Besides, the learning process may be even more interesting for students in the tasks are incorporated into stories. Let us present how easy and fun can be a task through our mobile. The following pictures are illustrations from the whole list of displays. The title is on the slide. Integrative sentences using the words where, when, and how often. The gray cat, here is here. The gray cat, yes. Your name is Leo. Accompanies students through the learning materials. Sometimes Leo needs help in theory and practice, asking the students one questions, explaining and practicing certain grammar problems and issues, in this case the interrogative sentences. The students themselves practice and learn the formulation of English questions. They have to solve the test by themselves. In the end, Leo thanks for help and say goodbye or bye-bye. Multilingual education is extra work for both, for students and teachers, mainly if they wanted to use ICT tools on their lessons. Lessons of this type require teachers with high level of persistence, patience, tolerance, and self-control. Students also have to have willpower, also they frequently need to be encouraged by the teacher. The participants of the training must accept those rules that apply to all language learning. One can learn to speak through speaking, to understand through listening, and to write through writing. It's all, and thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. It was really good example of what can we do with all these devices, and it comes in my mind, the early 80s Creation hypothesis. Somebody of you really knows about, and what he would say today on input-output hypothesis. It is enforced in this way, but what about live communication? That means effect factor, or monitoring oneself, and so on. There is a double version of the possibilities. Is some short questions? If not, we are proceeding to the... No? One? Yes, please.
Only a short question. Do you have an explicit bilingual education model?
Yeah, explicit.
A bilingual education model, so that...
immersion, you are thinking about, not immersion?
Immersion is not bilingual.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, bilingual education program means that both languages, Hungarian and Slovakian, are used as languages of instruction in a systematic way. That is bilingual education, I mean.
Yeah, that means that it's alternative. Some part of some part of Hungarian, some part of Slovak in the same class. That you mean? That you
at the primary, secondary level, no.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. What we do is a guerrilla activity at our faculty. So that we offer, we have agreements, but this is, I wouldn't say so. I mean, no systematic bilingual at primary and secondary. We have Slovak schools, Hungarian schools. Of course, Slovak schools do not have Hungarian lessons. Hungarian schools have Slovak lessons. But there is quite an actual debate on the status of Slovak lessons in the life of Hungarian students, because actually Slovak was taught as mother tongue even for Hungarian students, and it hasn't worked out. So we can see with our students that they come with a weak Slovak, and we didn't know why or what is happening. So actually we are told that some educational experts are working hard on this problem to solve, and there are people who promote the idea that Slovak should be taught as second language. Many people are quite afraid of this concept that Slovak should be taught in Slovakia as foreign language to Hungarian. I don't know what will be the result. So we have Hungarian students learn Slovak in a systematic way at schools, but the problem is that
we know a lot about it in Slovenia, but you know, that's political. That is political, these solutions, various solutions in different countries, yes. Okay, yes?
Yeah, I try to be short as a Hungarian from Hungary and not as a minority in Slovakia. We were talking about this, that it is really a problem. That why the EU says that multilingualism, it's really just, I don't know, it's a buzzword everywhere. So I really envy Finland, where Finnish and Swedish can live together in peace. And probably there's the same with the people in Slovakia, I think. And it was the case in the Austro-Hungarian monarchy when the neighboring ethnicities spoke each other's languages, and it was really a value. And as it is a question of politics, but wherever I go to and talk about multilingualism, I just put the question that where is the EU when there is this absolutely discriminative language law in Slovakia? And I'm just asking whether it's true or not, that Hungarians can't use their native language, their mother language, in public. Is that true, or is just the exaggeration of the politics or politicians?
In one way, this is an exaggeration, of course. But of course, it's a very complicated question, and it's a very complicated picture. As I said, there is a law on using minority languages. This law is in effect since 1999, and there is this threshold of 20%. So if the national minority community represents or reaches 20% of the total population of the given area, they are entitled to use in public. I don't know what you mean in public. So in town halls and administration, in speaking and written form. The truth is that not all of the people, or quite many of them, do not live with this. I mean, they do not use their mother tongue in public. But basically, how you ask the question is untrue. But of course, there are subtleties, and this is a very over-politicized issue.
Yeah, that was a condition to become a member of European Union, to have a legal status to our minorities. That means that the legal status is one side, but the real functional use of language, it depends on a various factors, on number of speakers, on domains when you can speak the language, and so on. And I think that that's why we in this EUNoM network, I think we have also think about that dimension. We didn't enough, I think so. But we will discuss later with the steering committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.